But what is the effect of the African Union in reality? We cannot talk about integration in the theme and not talk about the African Union. Because it is this organization that should unite us, create real integration. But we regret to see these wars that persist on the African continent, killing millions of young people.
This is incredibly wonderful. Gone are the days when other African countries are looking up to Nigeria to lead, of course, to show the direction, the path of progress and unity as far as Africa is concerned. Nigeria was once known to be the giant of Africa, but this is fast fading off while we are seeing the emergence of very tiny countries setting the pace for the giant of once giant of Africa to begin to emulate. Imagine Burkina Faso, who has been used or exploited by the France government and exploitations, but today, after breaking away from the chains of oppressions and the shackles of the Western colonial masters, today Burkina Faso is leading in the world of innovation, is leading in the world of economic transformation, focusing on the interests and the welfare of the citizenry. It is quite very interested in backing massively in infrastructural development geared towards making Burkina Faso self-dependence. And of course, today history is made. Adding to the further of his great achievement in the last 3 years, it has been progress development geared towards revamping, restoring, of course, the African glory, and by extension, the African continent should be free, and is laying the foundations, taking the lead. Today, we have seen that Ibrahim Traore represent the symbol of courage, the symbol of resilience, the symbol of resistance against the oppositions, against those who do not mean well for the Africans, though he has been greatly opposed by both internal sabotage and the Western powers, who have seen the handwriting boldly written that it is time for African liberation, for Africa to chart the way forward, for Africa to tell their own story by themselves. And it is quite interesting that Africans are rediscovering themselves and their potentials with the enormous resources inherent within the African state or continent. Africa can become the most invaluable region of the world. Of course, this has been hidden from the majority of Africans as the Western powers, of course, through their conspiracy, classified Africa as the most poorest continent in the world, whereas they keep on exploiting the resources of Africa from one community to the other, from one nation of Africa to the other. Not until Ibrahim Traore said enough is enough. We are going to break the chains of these oppressors and their collaborators within, of course, the Burkina Faso government, describing the democratic government as a government extending the slavery of the people, subjecting and subjugating the people into servitude, deprivation. You can imagine Burkina Faso that owns several billions of dollars, offsetting their bills just within a space of 2 years. What a miracle. And the miracle has not just ended. This is the beginning of that said, of course, moment of fulfillment. Today, Ibrahim Traore wipes out all school fees in Burkina Faso. He has laid a foundation, a legacy that will stand the test of time, that will live beyond, of course, his existence on the surface of the earth. This is tailored towards ensuring that every child in Burkina Faso has the right and access to education from primary level to the varsity, to the university of your choice. The government is footing the bill. Of course, they have the enormous resources to get that done. They have the dome of gold, they have the resources, mineral resources that have been the Western world, like the France, has been ripping off over the years. Now it is time to use the common resources of the people to benefit the locals. I mean, those who owns the land, the Burkina Babes or whatever they are being called. It is time to enjoy, of course, their own God-given heritage. It is quite an interesting moment. They have set a pace that no other African country perhaps, of course, is ready to take the same path. It is quite interesting. Kudos to Ibrahim Traore. Is a phenomenon. He's, of course, a kind of leadership that Africa has been waiting for decades, if not centuries. And today, he has eventually arrived. Giving free education from the primary level to university, you know what that means? That will enable the timid populations of Burkina Faso that have been abandoned, of course, while France was in control of the resources and every resources within the enclave, defined within the Burkina Faso territorial sovereignty. Today, Burkina Faso is taking the lead among the, of course, the leagues of African countries, setting the pace that will revamp and reposition Burkina Faso indigenes to become responsible citizens and eventually compete with other international countries as far as innovations, technology, agriculture, and every other human endeavor or facet of human existence is concerned. This is a declaration of the state of emergency that everybody, regardless of your age or tribe, must have access to education. Of course, no wonder is encouraging the teachers and giving every support he needed to drive this laudable project of the government. That is to say that government has a part to play in the capacity building of her citizens. That is quite interesting. That means that no child or family in Burkina Faso can now claim that they don't have the resources to go to school. It is now made compulsory that and free for everybody to access. Then why won't you have or utilize the opportunity? This is what we have been clamoring for over the decades. Imagine Burkina Faso coming to this level, an enviable level, envied by all, including Nigerians, possibly, as Ibrahim Traore has declared no visa fee for every African country. Definitely don't be surprised. The Nigerian citizens will be fleeing to Burkina Faso to seek for greener pasture and eventually for survival. It is a very disturbing development, but that is the sad reality. In fact, every other family in Burkina Faso must be celebrating this laudable feat, of course, taken by the leader of the Pan-African state. It is quite interesting, honestly. Burkina Faso is setting the lead. Now you begin to ask, wow, could this be possible? Something that was not even envisaged. Why Francophones, of course, I mean, the France government is in charge of the economy. The reason why today you can see there are crises in France as a result of people are protesting because even the government has been stretched. The French government has been stretched as people are demanding, do not cut the subsidy, do not cut the social security of the people or the citizens of France. Why? Because the people who owns the resources have decided we want to use our resources for the common good of everyone among us, of every one of us. It is no longer a system of exploitation. It can no longer be allowed. Burkina Faso is fully in charge of their resources, managing their resources, developing at their own pace, not being dictated or cajoled by Western powers or dictated, of course, on how to their growth rate and the rest of them. Well, it is an interesting development for African people and is a win-win for Africa. Of course, I hope that any other African states should be challenged by this singular action that has been made today. It is a great development, and kudos to Ibrahim Traore for focusing on the welfare, the well-being, and the future of every Burkinabe as far as his administration is concerned. It is quite an interesting moment. Honestly, Burkina Faso will soon be the giant of Africa, no doubt about that. As people will be continue to react, to pour their reactions and excitement, of course, over this laudable step. Burkina Faso it will soon be, not even will soon be, for from this point of course, reference, they are now living, even in education, where other countries' education system is collapsing. You can see in Nigeria, we have over how many millions, of tens of millions of out of school children. Even Mechi Allah and the federal government had a discussion, of course, as a result of the cartels flooding the entire street of Abuja and the flock of out of school children, indigent children, who, of course, the society has abandoned, and unfortunately, they have nowhere to fall back. There's no one to give them succor or comfort. You can imagine the situation where you are asked to go to school without paying anything, not just for primary school or secondary school, but up to the university level. Why would you be praying for such administration of such government to succeed? Of course, because their interests, their projects or program is tailored towards addressing the basic needs of humanity, empowering the youth for future growth and development. That is quite interesting. You can see now the Burkina Faso people are now becoming independent. Self-sufficiency is, of course, the greatest security. What a great leader indeed. Yes, he's a great leader and his steps are wonderful, are well calculated, of course. And the generation unborn will definitely not forget this act of kindness. Honestly, wealth, a deep of reflections of what is happening today. Burkina Faso people could now breathe a fresh air. You can imagine being given a new leaf, a new beginning, a new system that entrenches collective interests of the public, that prioritizes the welfare, the well-being of the people. That is quite interesting. Possibly Nigerians might be drifting to Burkina Faso so that they could also enjoy free education and other basic amenities. You can imagine they're fixing every symbol of nationality and pride, driving the economic agrarian revolution, technology, even in the area of security. You have seen how much Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore have invested in security. You have area surveillance cameras, CCTVs, picking up, monitoring events and happenings within the cities and, of course, the suburb regions of Burkina Faso. That is quite very interesting. They have invested so much in security as well as technology. Wow, it is quite interesting. And now he is sealing the entire process, declaring the state of emergency that it is time to reposition Burkina Faso and train them in different fields, in the medical field, engineering field, aviation field, I mean, aerospace, aeronautical engineering. They are deliberate and well articulated in their operations and plan to reposition the entire Burkina Faso citizens so they could be proud to be identified as the citizens of Burkina Faso. Indeed, in a matter of 10 years or less, you see them possibly competing with India in terms of technology and information technology and the rest of them. They are coming there. It is quite interesting. How many children go to school and how many makes it to university? That is quite interesting. But now the story is changing. There's a dramatic turn of events, and definitely the families will adjust to embrace this great opportunity that has been thrown to them at the platter of gold. It is quite interesting. The powerful, okay, the power of a true leader, even in Kenya, it can happen. It can happen only if our selfish, corrupt, and greedy leaders come to their senses. Yeah, it's saying that even in Kenya, there could be possibility of that repeating. The Kenyan authority, the Nigerian government could replicate the same, but there, the problem is bad leadership. Bad leadership. Do they have the political will to serve the masses? Do they place more importance on the well-being of the vulnerable indigent children roaming about the streets? Do they empathize with these children that if eventually given equal opportunity, these children might become the head of state, might become the president, might become responsible individuals contributing to the growth of their country and by extension humanity? It is quite interesting, but they have been deprived, rejected, and forced out by the same society that should have catered and cared for them. It is quite a very disturbing development, but that is the true reality of issues. Good step, but will the funding be sustainable in a long term? Of course, will the economy and the government policies be able to shoulder the costs in the long term? Well, it is to begin the thing, and of course, there is a well robust strategy and system in place to make sure that there is sustainability. Yes, because they manage their own resources now. It's no longer an issue of uh, being a second fiddle in your own resources, in control of your resources, administrative control of your resources, and the rest of them. Today, they have the powers to directly harness their resources, develop at their own pace, and sustain, build a sustainable economic framework that will definitely stand the test of time. They are just beginning. That is not just the end. So this is the state of preparedness to tell you that are determined and focused. What can we say about the Nigeria today? What can we say about Nigeria today? What could Nigeria be known for? If not for every day you begin to hear insecurity, banditry and the rest of the killing here, bombardment here, pulling of houses here. I mean, bloodletting and the rest of them. When will the leadership of Nigeria get it right? We have enormous resources to be envied by other Western world, but we have poor managers of these resources. And sadly, they're driven by their own personal or selfish interests, not having to prioritize the welfare of Nigerians. It is quite a very disturbing development. Any country that has good leadership must prioritize the welfare, must think about the future, the posterity of this generation. How is the current government or political elite preparing the younger ones for the future? Possibly they are preparing their children and their relatives and the rest of them to continue in perpetuity of the exploitations. When they are done, they shift, of course, and bring in their own children to continue where they stopped. So that cycle of viciousness must be broken. There must be a leader who must prioritize the welfare, who must be a leader with selfless service, who must consider the interests, the collective interests of the citizenry above his personal or political interests. Just as Ibrahim Traore is doing now, leading by example, not being corrupt. Of course, under his administration, you dare not go scot-free. If you have corrupt tendencies, then it means it is a game over for you. So the change you expect must begin with you. And that is just the case. And it's quite a very interesting development. Let's have your own take regarding this. Would that be possible in this Nigeria today, with a crop of politicians and political elites gallivanting and seeking for opportunity to better their lot and not that of the citizens? Everybody to himself. God for us all. If you're dull, the devil takes you. Nobody cares.